David Lee Roth said that one time. What separates you from your audience? 6 feet. That's it. And so once they understand that we're the same people they are, we just up here singing and they're up there, they're having a great time. Everybody's a part of the situation. They're as much a part of our band that night as we are. And so to me, if you start connecting with people on a human level, rather than just being a performer, I think it's more important. We like people to know who we are, and I want to know who they are. And for that 30, 45 minutes, or in the case of, a normal show's 90 minutes, we're all in it together. And how the night turns out is dependent on both of us.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Innersleeve Music Podcast, the podcast taking a behind-the-scenes look at all things music. I'm Cassius Morris, Joe Pacheco joining me on the line. What's going on, Joe?
Grooving to our theme song because I was afraid we were about to lose it, man. We got some.
Oh my gosh!
We got some
guys,
copyright.
We had a scare.
Yeah, we had some copyright claims. I'm like, oh no, don't tell me we're gonna lose our theme song. But no, definitely happy that we were able to keep it and rectify the situation. Those are, what do I call it? Growing pains, YouTube pains, one of those things.
That's right. The song we had to win Joe over on, by the way, which is interesting. Now you have an affinity for the song. There you go.
Yeah, no, I can't picture the show without it. You know what I mean? So I was a bit afraid, like, oh no, what are we gonna do to replace this thing?
It's good to have the song, and it's good to have you guys back for this brand new episode of the podcast. Joined today by Hillbilly Vegas, coming on to talk about the Adios MFs tour, of course, by Ted Nugent, the Farewell Tour, Joe, by the rock and roll giant, and Hillbilly Vegas are currently rehearsing right now to go join Ted on this tour. It was cool catching up with their frontman, talking about everything Hillbilly Vegas. Definitely looks like it should be a good tour for the Ted fans and the Hillbilly Vegas fans.
It looks like a party on the road, man. It looks like a party on wheels, I was thinking, like that's 100%. What the vibe is going to be like.
It's going to be very cool. So we're going to save all the details for the interview segment a little bit later in the show. Migos rappers Quavo and Offset have set aside their beef for the first time in nearly 2 years to deliver a surprise performance of Bad and Bougie at the 2023 BET Awards. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, Migos is a group of rappers who are all related by blood. They're family members, and of course, Takeoff passed away in November of 2022. Before that, Quavo and Takeoff had branched away from Offset, creating their own group called Neff and Few. And at that point, they were completely estranged from Offset. And now, Joe, 2 years later, they're putting the beef aside and they're paying tribute to their fallen brother. I think this is a nice story.
I like this new trend we have of like good feeling stories, like I'm always happy to hear these things where people put beefs aside. However legitimate the beefs, I have to give credit, beefs sometimes are legitimate, for a reason. But yeah, this is, especially when it comes to family like this, man, it's just like, it's a very sad situation when anybody gets, passes. And then they have like beefs that just, at a certain point, it's weird because I've had a few in my life and it's like, at a certain point it passes like this threshold where it's like, now it's like, it's been too long. Now like there's no turning back kind of vibe, but no, there's always a time to reunite, What do you think?
I completely agree, especially when it's family. I think it's imperative that you guys at least try to work it out, especially when you guys have beat the odds together. I kind of thought about it like an NWA situation. It was a rap group with such a tragic ending, they created something so great and so big together. But over the years, after so long, they got to look back and reflect on that and say, look, we did something that most people never get to do, and we did it together, so let's reunite, as we saw with Dr. Dre and Ice Cube. So I'm glad it didn't take that long for these guys because, again, these are young dudes from Atlanta. They did something that most people will never get the chance to, experience in their whole lives. And I think it's such a shame for it to end with bitter feelings. We do have some footage from this performance as well over at the BET Awards. Here's Offset and Quavo paying tribute to Takeoff, of course, with the big spaceship.
Awesome.
And this is, really cool visuals, Joe. I got to say, they went all out for the stage set during this performance, and there's Takeoff there. Rest in peace, by the way. I got to say, as a guy who was a very, very casual Migos fan, and I did get the chance to see them live in concert a couple different times, actually. I think I saw Takeoff live 3 different times. I would say that Takeoff was the best rapper in that group, and he was an immensely talented rapper who I think would have been big, regardless of being in this group or not. I think he was just phenomenal. Yeah. These visuals are really cool, though.
I'm just repeating myself, but it's really nice to see this finally come back together.
It's definitely nice to see. Let us know what you think of the Migos and, of course, Takeoff down below in the comments. Former Motley Crue guitarist Mick Mars is waging war against the group he was with and co-founded on the road for nearly 40 years. Now, this is quite the bombshell article, Joe, because this is a layered article with many different details, and it seems like Mick Mars has an awful lot on his mind.
First off, like, it's just so weird to hear a former guitar player of Motley Crue, you know, and
Yeah.
like, it's just such an odd thing to get used to because, I mean, they've, you know, surprisingly, there's a lot of bands, but like, you know, we see a lot of bands leave, singers go, blah, 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 all that stuff. But like these four were there for the longest time, you know, and now, which is what makes this completely sad. It just feels like both of them are sort of ruining the legacy for the fans, I think. But like I said, in the last little clip, we had like beefs. Sometimes there's legitimacy to these beefs, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just, you got to pick a side or who's really saying the truth in everything, you know?
Well, it's 100% true. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. So Mick Mars has made everything in terms of accusations from these guys are trying to ruin my legacy to they're trying to make people forget about me. He's also talking a lot, Joe, about his mortality, which is sort of sad to see. He's predicted that he potentially only has 8 years left. And, you know, he's also even speaking on where he wants his remains, saying he wants his remains in the Bermuda Triangle.
I want people to say Mick Mars is lost in the Bermuda Triangle. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
you know,
that's...
I mean, he's 72, so okay, you know, fair enough. Plus, like, he's been 60 years suffering from the disease that he has.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think he's thought this through, you know, pretty well.
Well, I mean, that sadly does make sense. You know, he's 72, but, you know, in terms of how he feels, I'm sure he doesn't feel 72. He probably feels a lot worse than that, you know?
He says, I don't feel a day over 71.
Oh, there you go. Okay, well, I stand corrected, Mick. I like that, though. Well, that's good. And, you know, that's what I hope for him. But, you know, like you're saying, though, it's still, your point is still valid that when you start to reach that age, that becomes something you think about. Apparently, his phone was buzzing still all day recently because it was his birthday with happy birthday wishes, but not a single guy from the band, Joe, called him and wished him a happy birthday, which is shocking to me, even because and you know, partially to your point again about it being shocking that he's even a former. I thought there was so much love in this band. I mean, Nikki Sixx has a portrait of Mick Mars's face tattooed on his body. I mean, how did things go so wrong to the point where he's not even calling him for his birthday?
Yeah, that's it. Well, you know, like that's what I said, beefs, man. And you get to a certain point where it's like now it's like lawyers talk instead of you guys, you know. And it's sad, to be honest, man, because this is my first love. Like the first band I ever loved was Motley Crue as a kid. And, you know, great albums, great songwriters. I mean, Mick Mars, I always thought, like, you know, I never saw him as like a shredder or one of those guitar players. But I mean, in terms of riffs, just tone, performance, parts, songwriting, he was perfect, you know? Like, he was perfect for the band.
100%. Now, we have this quote here from Mick Mars. He says, when they wanted to get high and F everything up, I covered for them, referring to his Motley Crue former bandmates. He says, quote, now they're trying to take my legacy away, my part of Motley Crue, my ownership of the name, the brand. How can you fire Mr. Hines from Heinz Ketchup? He owns it. Frank Sinatra's or Jimi Hendrix's legacy goes on forever, and their heirs continue to profit from it. They're trying to take that away from me. I'm not going to let them. That's the quote from Mick Mars in Rolling Stone. And it says he was fuming as he says this, Joe. It's funny because I can sort of feel that through the text.
Yeah, man. Like, it's like, you know, all this hard, you like put all the whatever they're having, you know, and the fact that they're saying that he was falling apart on stage, he couldn't play his stuff and all that. But like, I mean, that whole journey of 40 something years of working together, building this massive, like, you know, thing together. I don't know. I would think even myself, but I mean, I could talk. It's easy outside looking in, but I mean, I wouldn't want to take away from somebody what they deserve. And like he said, their heirs and like, you know, other people that may benefit from it. I wouldn't want to like take anybody's share of it or you know, take it away from them pretty much. I mean, he worked for it. He owns it. He deserves it, you know.
It is a pretty underhanded move. I can't even lie. Let us know what you think about the Motley Crue beef and Mick Mars apparently setting out for revenge down below in the comments. Hopping over to the SoundMojo Community tab, of course, this is the spot where we post different polls and questions to see what you guys are listening to. And this is a follow-up on one of our recent polls where we asked to pick the best music-related movie. Now, School of Rock took the crown in the first round, so we put it back up against these three films. And not surprisingly, Joe, School of Rock reigns supreme once again.
Yeah, our audience picked 68% for School of Rock, 4% for Dreamgirls, 17% for Saturday Night Fever, and 11% for La Bamba.
Jack Black supremacy is what I say, and I'm all for that, 100%. It's funny because I've been seeing memes, too, about the fact that a lot of people now, they see Jack Black and they think of the Peaches song, whereas the, OG Jack Black fans are thinking Tenacious D and School of Rock. So, his career it's been long-lasting, and it's an incredible career.
I love that guy, man. It's just like everything he does, be it like from this kind of stuff to Tenacious D to actual romantic comedies that he's done in the past, and then to Peaches, is just a beast, literally. In this list, it's hard to say, to be honest. Like I didn't watch Dreamgirls, but I know it was great when it came out. Saturday Night Fever is legendary, and La Bamba. You couldn't go anywhere when I was a kid growing up where you didn't hear the song La Bamba and the movie, and of course Lou Diamond Phillips was just everywhere with the Young Guns, and every movie he was just a star at the time. So I'm surprised it didn't get as much as more than that, but I mean, it's hard to beat Jack Black, right? It's all about relevancy, right? And just like, funny movies just seem to stick into people's brains with this kind of stuff.
Now, I think I've seen the Dreamgirls movie when I was quite young, Joe, but I don't believe I've actually sat down and watched Saturday Night Fever or La Bamba. Which one would you say I should start with?
I don't know. It's a toss-up either or for me. Like maybe Saturday Night Fever. I don't know.
I definitely want to see that because I've seen so many clips. I feel like I would be almost familiar with like what's going on in the movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, like disco like literally took over, man. Like I mean, they got Kiss to make a disco version of a song, right? So I mean, that's how big it was back in the day. This
was like 78, 79?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was way too young to even care probably at the time, or even know what the hell was going on.
It was Studio 54 time.
That's it. Yeah. So we'll just check out some of the comments here. I'm going to put on a limb here. Patty Ever After wrote, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say youth is involved in these picks for sure. Obviously, like relevancy, right? I wanted to play bass because of School of Rock, but by no means should it be ranked above other classics, pop culture. It's funny because it's like anything, right? It's worth what people are willing to pay for something. So someone thinks it's worth $1 million, someone thinks it's garbage, right? Who cares? Game X Simmons, Dreamgirls is the best movie on that list. School of Rock is just well loved. I mean, really well loved.
Yeah, and that's something a movie can have going for it. A cult classic, right? That often works.
How many movies are the worst movies ever made, and they're just cult classics, right? Just
exactly.
Because of that. We have C95W13. Walk Hard is greatest music film ever made. I told him I should thank you for reminding me. I'm going to put it on the next because we're going to probably obviously do a round 3 and see how far we can take School of Rock if it can be dethroned. We have Robert Johnson, KG3PU. La Bamba is so underrated. It wasn't at the time. Trust me, man. It wasn't at the time. I think it's just maybe no one has spoken about it for a long time. Yeah, exactly, and that's why it ranked so low. And then we have Jester Fix. Never even heard of the movie School of Rock before now. So
really? I'm surprised about that.
This is probably someone really young.
Interesting. Yeah. I that's so funny how a lot of the things that, even when I was a kid now wouldn't know. Don't make me feel old, Joe.
Yeah, but what's funny is like the stuff that like the Rickrolled stuff, right? Like those things they're pervasive. They just live forever. They have a life of their own.
That's true. Yeah. Like we said last episode, I'd like to be a one-hit wonder if it's that type of hit because
exactly.
It lasts generations. Let us know which movie you would pick down below in the comments. Another follow-up on one of our polls. Here we asked, pick your favorite 70s progressive rock band. The winner of the last round was Rush, so this time we put them up against Genesis, Jethro Tull, and Gentle Giant.
Our audience picked 69% for Rush, 21% for Genesis, 8% for Jethro Tull, and 2% for Gentle Giant.
There's no way for Rush to not win these, I guess, Joe, which again kind of makes sense because when you think of prog rock, it's hard not to think of Rush.
Yeah, I agree. I'm surprised at the gap between Genesis because Genesis is definitely a huge name in the prog rock scene. So is Jethro Tull, but I'm not surprised. Gentle Giant is probably just one of those not as well known bands, but man, like if you're into prog rock, do yourself a favor, check out Gentle Giant. It'll definitely spin your head around. Jethro Tull, personally, I just can't get past the flute. I mean, like that's the trademark sound. That's a trademark sound, and that's great, but I just can't get past the flute. Genesis, I love. I have so many favorite albums of theirs, and Rush, yeah, definitely I love. So I totally 100% would agree with this list.
Genesis, I definitely agree. I would have thought would have had more of a percentage, because personally, when I think of prog rock, I think Genesis. That to me is like the intermediate prog rock for somebody who maybe knows a little bit more about it. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think they're up there, but Rush for me definitely reigns supreme. I can't lie. Now, one of the comments said, "Where's Pink Floyd?" And I'm curious about that, Joe, because I personally wouldn't classify Pink Floyd as prog rock.
It's interesting that you say that, because like I always saw Pink Floyd classified as prog rock or progressive music, maybe not as rocky, but just like I don't see Led Zeppelin and they label them as heavy metal. I don't understand. I don't get that label, but
classic rock for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I consider them classic rock, and yeah, I don't know, man. Like Pink Floyd is definitely. I'll definitely pop them in the next one. We'll see how that goes. If that can dethrone Rush, King Crimson. Well, somebody mentioned King Crimson, but I think we put them in the last one as well.
Yes.
Rush are mid. Don't know what that means. Tevis or Teves 10156. Where's Pink Floyd? Here we go. Marshy 1499 asks, "Where's Pink Floyd?" So I'll definitely throw in Pink Floyd on the next one. Jethro, so Cryptic Ghoul, Jethro is probably my favorite amongst them. Fair enough. Apologies, I just can't get past that flute. Cuckoo, what is it? No, Cuckoo, I can't read. Concarino. Oh man, I love Rush. They are my favorite band. And Jethro Tull are pretty epic too, that's for sure. Can I vote for both? Unfortunately, we can't in these things. But no, I mean, look. It's just, it's just for fun. I mean, there's no like one is better than the other, but I mean, people seem to respond well. Look, we got 600 something votes, so it's definitely inspiring and motivating to continue and do more.
Rush still carrying the torch after all these years. Let us know what you thought if you didn't get to vote down below in the comments. Hopping over to our guest portion on today's episode of the show, it was awesome to be joined by Steve Harris of Hillbilly Vegas on episode number 125. Of course, talking to us about the Adios MF's tour, the Farewell Tour by Ted Nugent. As we said, they were in the rehearsal studio while we were talking, and it looks like he's all charged up for this tour.
Oh yeah, he seems ready to go. They seem like they're just, like if you look at the background, as you'll see, all the gear is set up. It looks like they're just, bam, ready to go for a party tour, with Ted Nugent.
100%. It looks like it's going to be an awesome tour. Make sure to click the links down below in the description of this episode for all the information to connect with Hillbilly Vegas, and make sure to let us know if you get out to one of the shows.
She said it's my time, it's your time, it's high time for a good time. Ooh, come on.
So what's going on, Steven? I see that are you rehearsing right now, or is this on tour?
No, this is our rehearsal studio.
Nice.
We leave in a couple of weeks. So yeah, this is where we do all our work here.
Awesome. And so Hillbilly Vegas, where are you guys actually located? Is it going to be Vegas?
No, Oklahoma.
Nice.
Okay, cool. I was going to say, if it's Vegas, then that's probably would be a little bit too obvious.
Oklahoma has all the Indian casinos, and we're all members of. Several of us are members of the Cherokee Nation, and this is kind of what we call Hillbilly Vegas. There is a casino and a tobacco outlet on every corner here.
Oh, nice.
That's pretty interesting, man. So maybe talk to us about what's going on right now with Hillbilly Vegas. Obviously, you guys are rehearsing for the Adios Mofos Farewell Tour. Of course.
Yeah, you guys are in Canada, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a Canadian in our band, as a matter of fact.
Nice. There you go.
Geraldo Dominelli. He's in Vancouver.
Nice.
Geraldo is also part of Loverboy, and he plays with Paul Rogers, and he's the producer of all of our last album.
Oh,
he's our keyboardist
Incredible.
and one of our guitar players. So we have a Canadian connection. But yes, we are currently rehearsing, getting ready to go. We're pretty rehearsed. I mean, we stay rehearsed, but last minute details for the tour, and then when we get done with Ted Nugent, we go to Europe. So
Incredible, man. So, I mean, how does it feel leading up to this? Of course, this is a big tour for Ted Nugent and sort of, I think it's a big time right now with a lot of bands sort of saying their farewell. How is the group feeling about embarking on this tour?
We're excited. We've never spent this long with the same artist. We play a lot of festivals, bike rallies, stuff like that. We'll do 2 or 3 dates with the same guy, but normally we don't stay gone for 2 months with the same artist. So this is kind of new to us. We're looking forward to it. We get to see all of Ted's fans and hopefully win them over. And of course, being associated with, aside from everything else, a rock and roll icon, one of the guys that, soundtrack to so many people's lives, in that age group, especially. It's good to be associated with that kind of musician,
Is it someone you listened to growing up?
I'm not going to lie. No, I mean, a little bit, I love Derek St. Holmes, Ted's singer from, some of his bigger hits. And so it was always I'm a Ted fan. I was a big fan of Damn Yankees, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
And so yeah, I'm a fan. I mean, as much as anything.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. I haven't heard someone mention Damn Yankees in a long time.
Well, I love that band.
Same here, man. Yeah.
I love that. So, I mean, in terms of this, you talked about winning people over. Is it a similar dynamic when you do festivals in terms of winning over the crowd, or is there usually a lot of your own supporters at these actual festivals?
At first, it was just winning them all over. And then as we've had now four straight Billboard top 20 singles on the rock charts. And so we see more and more people out there that know our music and know who we are and all of that. So yeah, we're winning them over a little bit at a time, but there's more and more people that already know who we are too. Yeah.
Is that a fun challenge? Even after the number of years you guys have sort of been at it, because it's definitely, it could be a double-edged sword, I could imagine.
Yeah, it's a great challenge. I'll tell you what, we were several months back, we were in England and we played over there. And winning those fans over, getting to know those people and the music, just how rabid they are for music over there. It's like America was in the 70s and 80s over there, as far as the way the people respond. And so that spoiled us, because that was a lot of fun over there playing to those people. But yeah, it's always a challenge, but I like that. I enjoy it. You get 30, 45 minutes to try to make as many new converts as you can. And so you do all you can to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've heard from a few of these interviews where artists that go overseas, and not only just like rock, but they have a great reception for the rock guys, but even some hip hop guys have like been really like, the UK is really like, super welcoming. I'm seeing.
Yeah, and they want a physical copy of your album. They want a CD. They want vinyl. They don't want to stream it. They want it in their hand. They want to read the liner notes. We put in our record label in Europe, put our album out over there, 17-page booklet with it.
Wow.
I was shocked. Wow. I mean, I didn't know what to do, because
it's a tour book.
Right. And of course, in America, we don't even put CDs or anything like that out anymore, so it was really cool. And you find that in pockets of America, especially in the secondary markets. The secondary markets, people are a whole lot more receptive to going out and seeing live music than they are in the bigger cities where there's so much to do,
Yeah. So, I mean, would you say, like, where you guys are based in Oklahoma, would you consider that to be a secondary market or a main market?
Well, yeah, it's a secondary market, but like, what's the terminology for a fifth or sixth dairy market? I don't know. It's it's small here. There's a couple of big cities, but we're in a small area. We love it here, but yeah, I mean, our closest city is a secondary market for radio. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, do you find that sort of fosters extra love in the community though? Because I mean, it's not as big, so it seems like the people in each community, because I'm in a city like that as well, they seem to be a little more tight knit at these shows. Yeah,
they are. And when you start playing, like we play a lot of bike rallies, Sturgis, Laconia, Daytona, Lone Star down in Galveston and places like that. And every time we play a bike rally, we see people we saw the year before at a different rally even, what I mean? They travel. It's like the old Deadheads, I guess, they travel these bike rallies and they just do their thing, and they're always there, and then they start following you. So yeah, they're real loyal to the people who show up and play for them.
Reaching out, there's hell to pay.
What can you tell us about these bike rallies for somebody who's never been? Like, maybe if you could set the scene, how many people usually show up at something like that?
Well, well, hundreds of thousands show up at the rallies themselves. Like Sturgis is 8 or 9 days, and when we'll be out with Ted this year, but usually when we go to Sturgis, we're there for the whole week. We play at a couple of different venues, and they ride all day, and they come to the concerts at night. And every campground has a venue that has 2,000 or 3,000 people in it every night for the shows. And so you play to several thousand people that are just there to do nothing but soak it all in and have a great time, because all they have to do is stumble back to their trailer or tent or whatever it is they're staying in. So no, it's great, man. You know, it's like everything you want as a musician.
Wow, that's so cool. So have you guys been doing those since the beginning, or is that something that sort of took a couple of years? It was since the beginning. Okay.
We're probably we've been doing it since the second or third year. You know, the first couple of years we were just writing songs and just playing bars and doing what we could. And then we started getting out a little bit and building our footprint kind of in a circle. And now we're kind of have done the nationwide thing. We've played up in Canada a couple of times, and even out to the West Coast and all that. So now we've been coast to coast many times, but the bike rallies are still our favorite thing to go do.
Man, that's so cool. So, I mean, in terms of, you know, preparing for the tour, obviously going out on the road, maybe what's the most challenging part about preparing for a tour like this type of run?
Your health, honestly. You know, you do short runs and you can just eat whatever you want, go and have a great time and do whatever. But when you got to be gone, like, you know, we're going to be gone 2 months with Ted and then another month in Europe, you got to start developing a routine. And I'm friends with some musicians. One of my good friends is the lead guitarist, Rich Eckhart for Toby Keith's band. And he taught us a lot about routine and about diet and about just being prepared every night mentally and physically so you can do the same thing and deliver the same product night in, night out. So I think your health is the biggest issue is getting ready. Playing is second nature at this point, but being able to do the same thing every night, you can't eat bad. You got to get all the rest and the things you need to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, I've heard that, you know, when you're on tour, the work isn't the hour or 2 hours you're spending on stage. The work is, you know, the 23 hours around that, right?
It is. And we have a radio tour to do while we're out with Ted. So we'll be visiting radio stations during the day and performing acoustic in some of those and doing interviews. And then we'll go back and get ready for the show. The show itself is, like I said, being a support act, it's a short night for you. And it's great because you get to see all the crowd, you get to play quick and you're done. But then you got to drive 300 or 400 miles to the next one the next night. So, you know, it's just, like I said, it's just managing your time and your health and your routine, making sure you have one.
Yeah. Any tips you can give some of our listeners that may be like excited to go on tour? And
man, I don't know. I be ready, but be ready for the other stuff, you know, doing interviews and things like that and seeing a different town every night. It's just, like I said, it's a grind, not the playing part, everything else. And make sure you're mentally prepared to be away from home for a while too, you know, because that's hard for a lot of people.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely no question about that. So in terms of other tours that you guys have done, you know, obviously you guys have, you know, done shows and tours with Blake Shelton, Travis Tritt. Maybe what are some of the other experiences you guys have taken away and learned from these opportunities?
Never stereotype guys, because we got put on a bill one time with the Insane Clown Posse.
Okay.
And honestly, I thought this is the stupidest thing that somebody's ever done to us.
Who booked this show?
Yeah, I know. Those guys were probably the most gracious and the nicest and most accommodating and just the most supportive guys we've ever supported on any show. They were amazing. And so that just goes to show you go on something with a preconceived idea and you get so shocked. And this time it was such a positive experience that I'll never forget how great they treated us and how nice they were.
Wow, I've heard that on a few occasions already. Yeah.
Well, and their fans, they look crazy because their fans, they show up in these rain jackets and ponchos, and they got their cell phones all wrapped up in plastic. I don't know what happens there, so I didn't understand. They're doing that because they're going to get sprayed with thousands of gallons of Fago Cola, you know, at the end of the show. And they're just staring at us. And at first, and I used the line that Buddy Holly used when they booked him into the Apollo Theater in Harlem. the curtains open, and the audience obviously wasn't expecting a white performer because they'd only heard him on the radio. And he just looked at him, he smiled, he said, "Look, I'm just as surprised as you are." And that's exactly what I told those fans. I said, hey, listen, I'm just as surprised as you are, but we might as well have a good time while we're here. And they were wonderful. They, we're more of a rock and roll, Southern rock type of thing. And they accepted it. They participated. They were present. They were just so good to us. And the guys in the band on the side of the stage were so wonderful. They gave us the full stage, the full setup. And
wow.
And we played with a lot of great people. Travis Tritt's another one that was wonderful. But I have to single those guys out because it was such a shock.
Nice.
I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that.
That's the thing, right? I mean, it's and sometimes, those guys who you think are off the wall, they definitely live up to that expectation, right? So you can never know exactly what to expect.
Well, people are afraid of them.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's and for good reason. I definitely can't blame them for that. So in terms of connecting with your fans, obviously, that seems to be something that's really important to you, just from talking to you for the last 15 minutes. What are some of the ways that you found are the best ways to connect with fans on and off the stage? Because I know social media is a big part of it nowadays and all of that.
Well, I'm a TV person. I have a TV in every room of my house. I don't really have a way to listen to music in my house. I watch a lot of TV. And my favorite shows are not story driven, they're character driven. And once you invest in the character, kind of the story's secondary. I mean, a show like Seinfeld for me is my favorite show ever because I like the people in it. I like the characters. And so what we try to do is we try to connect with people and let them know who we are as people and let them know the characters rather than just the story. And once they understand the characters and they understand where we come from and understand who we are, and the only thing that separates us from them is 6 feet. David Lee Roth said that one time. What separates you from your audience? 6 feet. That's it. And so once they understand that we're the same people they are, we just up here singing and they're up there, they're having a great time. Everybody's a part of the situation. They're as much a part of our band that night as we are. And so to me, if you start connecting with people on a human level, rather than just being a performer, I think it's more important. We like people to know who we are, and I want to know who they are. And for that 30, 45 minutes, or in the case of, our normal shows, 90 minutes, we're all in it together. And how the night turns out is dependent on both of us.
Wow. That's really well said. I mean, how do you guys retain that? Because, you mentioned being in a different city every day, you're not even sure where you're at half the time. How does the audience not just become like a faceless mass, essentially?
Well, it doesn't, because here's the thing. I can look out in the audience and I can see, sometimes I see one person, and that one person will give me so many things to talk about, just be how animated they might be. John Fogerty once said that his experience at Woodstock was so horrible because they went on so late at night and the Grateful Dead had put everybody to sleep. And he said they ended their first song and it was totally silent. And out of the darkness, he hears one guy say, "We're with you, John." And he said, so you know what he did? He played that entire set to that one guy out there out of 500,000 people. And I take that and I do the same thing. I see somebody out there who's really animated, really into it. And I draw my energy from them, and then I just spread it out to everybody.
Say you love me.
How many years would you guys say it took? I mean, maybe you can't speak for the rest of the band, but how many years would you say it took you to really get your stage presence to where you felt like you really had it when you were on stage?
Oh man, I had that before I even had the ability to sing. When I was a kid, I thought I wanted to be, the Partridge Family reruns would come on. So I would get one of those little toy brooms and I would try to be Keith Partridge or David Cassidy or whatever, and I was a performer long before I knew I could sing. And so I think the other stuff had to come secondary. I knew that I wanted to do that. I didn't know how. I wanted to be a drummer at first. And, I just wanted to be a part of it, but I really wanted to entertain people. And that's, I mean, I come from a long line of preachers and people like that and performers. And to me, I'm not very good in a one-on-one conversation, to be perfectly honest with you. But if I turn the light on to do an interview or to do a live performance, my personality comes out. That's where my personality is. Honestly, I sometimes I'm pretty the quietest one otherwise.
Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely that ebb and flow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like obviously, I'm assuming, but what happens when we assume. But I'm assuming you came from like a musical kind of family, or like how was the
Yes.
support system
Yes.
for you? Yeah.
I have an uncle who in the 50s and 60s, he was a Nashville performer, and he was a recording artist, and my parents were part of a Southern gospel group in the 70s and 80s, and they toured and played in Southern gospel. And so, yeah, it's always been that way. I can go all the way back to the early 1900s when one of my greats was a voice teacher at a singing school here in Oklahoma.
That's so cool.
So,
That's
it's kind of there.
It definitely goes way, way back. Sure. Sort of a wild card question for you here, because this has been something that we've been talking about here on the channel with our listeners and viewers. In terms of the best music related movie, whether it's a biopic or a movie like, Purple Rain, a lot of our viewers love School of Rock. What would you say is your favorite music related movie?
My favorite music related movies are actually the ones that are the worst on a cinematic level and the drama level, right? And it's funny you mentioned Purple Rain, because I am right now in the middle of a book, an audio book I listen to while I'm driving or whatever, about the making of Purple Rain. And so that's fresh on my mind right now.
Nice.
And it's music driven, but I got to tell you, this is going to make me look stupid maybe, but one of my favorites is Hard to Hold by Rick Springfield.
Oh,
okay.
Nice.
Haven't seen that one.
Yeah, me too. But I mean, I grew up with that.
It's a stupid movie, but I love the music and I love the performance part. And Rick Springfield wrote great melodies, and he's a great performer to this day. He's in his 70s and he looks younger than me. So
that's amazing.
But no, Purple Rain and the Rick Springfield movie, those are two of my favorites, honestly, for music movies. I know nobody else is going to say Rick Springfield, but it's true. I got to be honest, right? I got to tell you which one I like.
Yeah, man. That's what made you, like part of watching those type of movies. Yeah.
100%. Maybe taking it back, I'm curious, what can you tell us about the Ringo Manor and how that relates to the band?
Ringo Manor is actually just our guitarist, Johnny Reed. He lives way out in the country. When I say out in the country, I mean it's way out there. It's 20 minutes past the rural. So that's how far out it is. And we first started the band, Johnny had a rehearsal room out there. So we'd go out there, and on social media, just trying to build a presence, I would post going to rehearsal tonight or whatever. And nobody really bought into it. So then I started posting, we call him Johnny Ringo. And so then I started posting, hey, going out to Ringo's to make music. And then I thought it would be funny if we give that little tiny house out there in the woods a name. So I just named it Ringo Manor, like it's some, like Wayne Manor on Batman or something, you know what I mean? Bruce Wayne's house. It's a little 3-bedroom house out in the country, but I just started calling it Ringo Manor. And we wrote all our first songs out there. And so when we did our first album with our first record deal in Nashville, we thought, you know what? Why don't we just call it where we wrote all our songs? So we called our album Ringo Manor. And it's just a stupid joke. It's just a practice house. And, this little house that I wanted to name it to make it sound like some big estate or something, it's just a joke. But yeah, that's where it came from. Johnny Ringo's house.
I love that, man. That's hilarious. Yeah. You mentioned Nashville too. One thing that we have been sort of trying to wrap our minds around is the music scene in Nashville. Maybe if you could speak on that, I don't know, like how recently you've been there, but at least for when you were there.
No, we've been there. We'll be back there at the end of August for a show at a place called the Mockingbird Theater. Nashville is it's like a steel mill. They make steel there, a factory. Nashville's a music factory. They have a process, they have writers, they have producers, they have in-house musicians, and it works for a lot of people. It didn't work for us because we're a band, and bands aren't necessarily popular for the Nashville machine, because if you're a band who plays your own instruments and you write your own songs, then how does the writer get paid? How does the studio musician get paid? And all of that. So suddenly you're not a very good piece of clay to mold on the assembly line in Nashville if you don't need half of the components. So Nashville, I have nothing bad to say about it. It works for a lot of people. It didn't work for us just for the fact that we're a band who writes their own songs and nobody really cares about us if you do that. So we have business there, our managers there. We have great friends in the industry and musician friends there. We love to go there and eat the food and play shows once in a while, but as an industry, we tried it for a couple of albums, and they just wanted us to be things we weren't. And so if we wanted to do what we wanted to do, we had to get out and go make our own music and do what we felt like was best for us. And that's when things really started taking off for us.
Unless you guys do it your own, like the way that you have done it, and take the reins yourselves, is it mostly pay to play in a city like Nashville, so to speak? Because it sounds like if you're not making X amount of people money, you're not really in it.
I have never made a dime in Nashville. I don't know how you can take that for however you want to take it. And I've played there a lot. Now, guys make money playing on Lower Broadway where the tourists are and stuff like that. They make tip money. They get paid to play sets, and songwriters work their way up doing that, in between sessions and things like that. But going into Nashville, we always go to Nashville for a reason. We are going to Nashville the next time to formally sign our publishing deal that we just did for songwriting. And so we're going to play a show with the former Leonard Skinner drummer, Artemis Pyle, him and his band. So we're going to play with them at the Mockingbird Theater, but that's just a formality little thing we can do so we can sign our publishing deal. So no, I don't make any money in Nashville ever from playing, but it's just what you do sometimes.
It's just what you do sometimes.
Well, congrats on the deal. That's always a good thing.
Well,
right?
thank you.
Yeah.
It's huge.
I have to give credit to our record label, Conquest Music in Europe. They're the ones who set that up for us with Sony, and they've been wonderful to us. And our European label and our European support has just been amazing. And so we are, after we get done with the TED tour, we are definitely heading back that way and going to get focused on building that over there.
Sounds so strange hearing like a UK label with a country rock band, and like it's, I don't know, to me, I'm not used to it, you know what I mean? Like, but
man, let me tell you something. I don't really classify us as a Southern rock band. That's like telling somebody in France, hey, what kind of food do you eat? They just say food. We say French food. We play rock and roll music, but we're from the American South. And so we have a little bit of twang in us, sometimes a little bit of that, but it's just who we are. I don't really classify it as, but I'm going to tell you, the folks over there, because of what Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers and Blackberry Smoke and bands like that have, the foundation that they built, starting with Skinner, the Southern rock scene in the UK is the greatest in the world for that particular genre of music. There's nothing like it.
It's interesting because we have a local band here called The Damn Truth, and like they're sort of picking up, and they're in Europe right now touring and like the acceptance they get, like is just, they're like more like classic rock. Yeah, the acceptance they get is just outstanding. It's like it almost seems like, anyway, I know this is a situation for Canada less now compared, because we have like big places like Toronto, but growing up it was always you have to go somewhere else to make it in your own home.
Well, listen, that's true where we are. We're the same way. The people around here, they just know us as those guys that play in a band. We go outside of here, people, it's different. But I kind of like that at this point, because we can just come home, be who we are, go to the grocery store, do whatever. Nobody bothers us here. They could care less about it. And I have to tell you, when we went to Canada, we started in Kelowna at a club there. And then we went into another place. I want to tell you where it's at. I don't remember over there. Then into Vancouver. We did 4 or 5 shows there. And we were treated almost as well as we were treated in Europe. So I have to give a lot of credit to the folks in Canada. Were wonderful to us. The crowds were great. The acceptance, it was really a wonderful experience.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. BC is amazing too, man. I mean, the scenery and everything there, it's like, it's unreal. So it's definitely a great place to be. We want to remind people that the Adios Mofos tour is coming up with Ted Nugent and of course, Hillbilly Vegas. What are you hoping that fans take away from this? Are you hoping that people leave and they want to stream more of your music, or that they just have a great time at the show?
Both, honestly, but I want them to realize that we're just regular people and we write regular people music. That's it. We write the people's music, as they say the people's chord is A. Well, we're the people's music. We just write regular guy music, regular people music about the stuff that people have been writing about forever. I don't try to break any new ground with lyrics. I just like to write about real situations in life and fun and that kind of music that when you hear it, you go, oh yeah, I remember what I was doing when I first heard that song. That's all I ever want. I just want somebody to have a nice memory when they hear our music and want to hear it again. And so if they do that, we win.
Awesome, man. Steven, we really appreciate your time today, man. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you very much for having me. We appreciate it very, very much.
She said it's my time, it's your time, it's high time for a good time. Ooh, come along, come along.
Huge shout out to Steve Harris from Hillbilly Vegas for joining us on episode number 125 of the Innersleeve Music Podcast. I want to get out to see this tour, Joe, because the way, I mean, he's selling it. I'm hyped up.
Yeah, no, it just sounds like it's going to be a good time, party rock tunes, some, you know, hopefully safe legal limit of drinking, unless you're, you know.
Just on that limit.
yeah, that's it. No, it's not, like, they just sound like they got their stuff together, man. They're ready to go. Super pro. I was really impressed with, like, mentioned Seinfeld. We talked about Purple Rain, you know. It's just very cool to just see the commonalities.
What were the odds of that, too?
Yeah, I know. That was funny that you
came
mentioned
out of
Purple
nowhere.
Rain. Yeah, I know. And he's reading a book, literally, at the time we mentioned it, you know.
It's awesome. He's definitely a guy who loves music, and he loves all different aspects of music and performing. Like he said, you know, he wanted to perform before he was even making music. So this is definitely, you could see that passion come through. Make sure to go catch them on the road at the Adios MF's tour with Ted Nugent. We have all the links down below in our description for you to go connect with Hillbilly Vegas. And we appreciate you guys for joining us on this brand new episode of the podcast. Make sure to go check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. All of our socials are at SoundMojo. Go check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/SoundMojo. And make sure to hit that subscribe button as well for future updates. Don't miss anything we do. Hit that little notification bell next to it as well. Also, make sure to check us out on our audio platforms. That's going to be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio. Anywhere you can get your audio podcast, you can find the Innersleeve Music Podcast. And make sure to shoot us a 5-star review as well. We would appreciate that. Thanks for tuning into this brand new episode of the show. We'll catch you guys next time.